Okay, and now it's time to take a look at the next group of potential candidates for the Wisconsin offensive line coaching position, and that group will be the alumni of the University of Wisconsin. As soon as any coaching job opens up at Wisconsin or in the state of Wisconsin in general, and including the Green Bay Packers here, the only candidates you hear are people who have come from inside the state. Doesn't matter if that person has any kind of coaching pedigree. Doesn't matter if that person has even retired yet. Well, they're from Wisconsin, therefore they are the best candidate. There's a segment of Badger fans who would much rather have the team be full of 2 stars from Peshtigo than anything, because they think, why go outside the state? We have everything we need right here. So what that the state of Wisconsin can only support one Division I program and a bunch of D3 schools. There's plenty of talent to not only fill the Wisconsin football team, the Wisconsin football coaching staff, well, Green Bay. So, with that in mind, let's actually take a look at some of the candidates that I've heard coming out. So, here we go. And I've put all the guys that I've heard so far multiple times. I've heard some guys singularly on this list. We got Joe Thomas, Casey Robach, Ricky Wagner, Aaron Gibson. And to capture everybody else, any alumnus who isn't a coach. And I'm just going to say this about their candidacy. No. They're not football coaches yet. Okay? Joe Thomas is dabbling in coaching this year, coaching in Germany this summer. But he has a young family. Do you think he wants to be on the road recruiting, sitting in high school kids' living rooms trying to convince them to come to Madison? No. He doesn't need to. He's got plenty of money. He could sit on his butt and do nothing the rest of his life and have all the money in the world. Or he could do what he wants to and have fun with it. Okay? He's using his coaching experience in Germany, I think, more as a summer vacation than anything. And even if he thinks he wants to get into coaching, he'll go the NFL route. There's so many negatives with coaching college football. Why would he want to come to college football? So, no. Casey Robach, he has a good job, and he's good at it, being a part of the recruiting staff. I think he is an unsung hero of the recent recruiting successes. And the great thing about the job that he has is he gets to go home to his wife and kids at night. Why would he want to change that? Also, he's been out of the on-the-field game for what? 10 plus years? He might not be there. So no. Ricky Wagner just retired. Again, he's at one point signed the richest contract for right tackle in NFL history at that point. He doesn't need to coach. Aaron Gibson. We're just going to move past him right away. So any alumnus who's not a coach, no. I want someone who's qualified for the job. Okay? Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player who ever lived. Terrible owner. Okay? Matt Millen, fantastic linebacker. Smart guy on TV. Terrible at administration. I could go on and on and on. I want guys who have experience. Okay. Now, if any of these guys, if Joe Thomas in 3 years after coaching in Germany and doing whatever decides he wants to coach, get some experience, all right, great. But until then, no. And before I move on, I know a lot of you are thinking right here and screaming Jim Leonhard at your screens right now. Jim Leonhard took the time for a full year before getting the defensive back coach job at Wisconsin to learn from Dave Aranda. Okay? He took so much time as a player when he was under Rex Ryan to learn, because he was basically a coach on the field. I think Jim Leonhard, one, he had some experience. He might not have had the day-to-day coaching experience, but he had a taste of coaching at the collegiate level before he got the job. And then he proved to be a savant. Okay, great. However, that savanthood in being a defensive coordinator does not mean he's qualified yet to be a head coach. All right. Anyways, rant over. Moving on. Let's actually look at some real candidates. And the first one we have here, and this one's going to be pretty quick, is Donovan Raiola. Okay. Now, we all know Donovan Raiola. He was an offensive lineman back in the day. Bob Bostat was his offensive line coach. And it was a big recruiting get out of Hawaii, especially since his brother had played at Nebraska. So it's great to get him in. His coaching resume, okay, 2015, 2016, he was a grad assistant at Notre Dame. 2017, he was an offensive line coach at D3 school in Illinois. In 2018, 2011, he followed the offensive line coach from from Notre Dame to the Chicago Bears, where he was the assistant offensive line coach. And now he's moved on to be the offensive line coach at Nebraska. Okay. Qualifications wise, I think he's got what it takes. Coaching at Nebraska, he has a good sense of modern football. He's young enough that he can relate to the younger players. And he has the experience to hold that position. What's obviously going to hold him back from being considered a real candidate, and it was more of a pipe dream candidate, but he falls under the alumni, is that last name, Raiola. Obviously, his brother Dominic played at Nebraska, and now his nephew and soon-to-be nephews are potentially going to be playing quarterback for Nebraska. I say potentially because I think Dylan Raiola, I think he's using Nebraska. I think he's going to pull up Quinn Ewers, and he's going to be gone after he gets his NIL check. But that's just me. So if his nephew bolts, maybe we got a chance to pick him up, but probably too late for that right now. So just a name to keep in the back of our head. Okay, moving on. Our next candidate, Al Johnson. This name should look familiar. Okay, he was the running back coach in 2022. Okay, one of the dumbest moves in a line of dumb moves that Paul Chryst made during his tenure. Okay, I know they were desperate to find a running back coach, but he's not a running back coach. He did what he could, and it obviously wasn't good enough. And Paul Chryst set him up to fail there. But if we look back at his pedigree, obviously he was the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach at St. Norbert. He was a grad assistant at Wisconsin. Then he became a head coach at East Central in Oklahoma, D2 school. Quite a jump from a grad assistant to a head coach. Filled that staff with a lot of familiar Wisconsin guys. And they were building something. And then he got the opportunity to come to Wisconsin. And he took it, and it didn't work out. So now he is the offensive line coach at Montana State, where they've built a very strong rushing attack. I think they had multiple 1,000-yard rushers this year, made it deep into the FCS playoffs this year, and would be a solid candidate. Now, he has coaching experience. He is somewhat limited on coaching offensive line, but he has enough experience, and also he played in the NFL for at least enough years where I think the combination of knowing how to coach and relying on his experience could give him enough to be a solid candidate for Wisconsin. All right. So, and finally, last candidate we're going to look at today, and I think this is the most likely one. And outside of Mike Cummings, this would probably be the one that I want the most, and that is Josh Oglesby. Okay. Josh Oglesby, the highest rated high school recruit ever to come out for the Badgers, had a solid NFL career, or solid career at Wisconsin, had a cup of coffee in the NFL with the Redskins, and, was okay. He played. Over 5 stars, that we've had over the few years, he's probably the most successful. Not saying much, but he was. All right, so his coaching career started out as a grad assistant under Gary Anderson in 2013-2014, moved on as a quality control coach with Gary Anderson at Oregon State, and then moved on after Gary Anderson resigned as a quality control coach at UTEP before moving on to the quote-unquote professionals, where in 2019 he started out as the tight end coach for the San Diego Commanders of the AAF, and then finished up as the assistant offensive line coach for the Seattle Dragons of the XFL, which I believe both of those teams were head coached by Mike Riley. So he picked up pretty good relationships there. And from 2020 until currently, he is the offensive line coach at San Diego State. It's a tough job in San Diego State. They're starting to rebuild that program, and I think they got to a bowl game this year. I might be mistaken, but I know they've sent some players to the NFL during his period, a couple, and again, he's that nice combination of young, but he has coaching experience. Also, in the meantime, in the off seasons, I believe the off season 2016, the off season of 2019, he took part in the Bill Walsh Fellowship, coaching intern fellowship, with the Raiders and also the Indianapolis Colts. So not only does he have the college and the semi-pro level, but he also has the NFL. So those are all very good things to have on his resume, and also just to build experience and build knowledge getting into the program. Okay, so when looking back at these candidates, and I might do another one tomorrow talking about some outlier candidates, but with all of the craziness in the coaching carousel that started as of last night, some of these candidates that have come through today might be completely out of the picture. There might be some brand new candidates because of how much staffs are going to shuffle in the next couple weeks. But again, when it comes to coaches, you need to find the person you need to put emotions and familiarity aside and find the best candidate. Now, being familiar and being comfortable with somebody is important, but not for this without taking away quality. Okay? Luke Fickell brings in coaches he knows because he knows them and he thinks that they're qualified for the job. They don't just get jobs with him because they were with him at Cincinnati or Ohio State. They have to be qualified. And God bless all of our great alumni and all the great offensive linemen we've had over the years. Not many of them are coaches, and so they're not qualified for the job yet. They'd like to be. They should get into coaching, start coaching at the low level. Do what Joe Thomas is doing, coach in Europe, whatever. But you got to be qualified for the job before you do it. So there's a bunch of our candidates. I think we're going to get a coach here within the next week or so. Be interested to see how close we were in picking some of these guys, and looking forward to see where the program's going in the future. All right. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.